good morning, gentlemen. How are you today, my three turtle friends? Huh? Well, good morning, Lionhearts. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. How are all of you doing today? Excellent. I'm in a really great mood because today we get to do a vlog on someone that I always love to vlog. You know me, if I go to Paris, I always stop and see Oscar Wilde and Jim Morrison. If I go to Tennessee, I want to see Elvis. And since I'm in Arizona, we got to do a Waylon Jennings vlog. I've done a lot of them and I'll reference them throughout today. But what I want to do today is something we haven't really done, which is talk about how Waylon ended up meeting Buddy Holly and then what happened to his life after Buddy Holly before he went to Nashville. All those years from basically 1959 till 1964. What happened to Waylon? What was his life doing? We're going to examine it today. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. And look who's coming. Look who's coming. Look at that happy guy. And I think this shirt's pretty appropriate for today. Now let's hop in the car and head off to Mesa Cemetery. Start our day. Here it is up to the right. Actually right across the street from this cemetery where Waylon's buried is the Oakland A's training facility. Here we are. City of Mesa Cemetery. So to me, Waylon Jennings is right up there with Elvis Presley as far as being one of those people when you watch them perform, they always look cool and genuine and just like they were their own person through and through. And to understand where the king of outlaw country came from, I mean, we have to go back and explore all of his roots in rock and roll that brought him to country music. So we're gonna do that here at his grave. Now, I am really, really glad that he's not buried in this section. Both sides of this section are flooded. Look at that. I've never seen a cemetery like that. That's truly heartbreaking. Well, here he is. Has a lot of visitors, or at least a lot of Easter decorations out here. The great one, the great Waylon Jennings. Good morning, Hoss. How are you today, my friend? The boy from Littlefield. His family moved to Littlefield, Texas, which was pretty much a cotton community, and his dad ran a creamery. His mom taught him how to play guitar at the age of 8 years old, and boy did she start a fire with that. He was playing at all the family functions, youth centers. He even won a Channel 13 talent show contest, and by the age of 12 he had been seen by the local Littlefield radio station owner and was offered a 30-minute weekly spot. Had his own band and everything. Isn't that crazy? 16 years old, he apparently was a little bit of a troublemaker, and the superintendent encouraged him to leave school, and so he did. Went off and got odd jobs, but he also ended up working for radio stations playing country music. He would do, at one point he had a job doing 6-hour shifts from 4 a.m. till 10 a.m. He would do 2 hours of old country, 2 hours of new country, and then the last 2 hours would be rock and roll. And he ended up getting fired from that because every time he would play Chuck Berry or Little Richard, the station owner would get mad and come and yell at him about it, and one day he played Little Richard twice and he got fired for that. Now, during the time that Waylon was the radio DJ doing those 6-hour shifts, he was actually doing that in Lubbock, and that's where Buddy Holly lived. Buddy Holly was doing the KDAV Sunday party show every week, and so Waylon would sometimes go check that out. So they knew each other from seeing each other around there and at different shows, but then they actually sat down and talked one day when they ran into each other at a restaurant. Now, when Waylon got fired from the disc jockey job for playing the two Little Richard records back to back, a man named Sky Corbin, who had his own station, and his family ended up buying the Lubbock station. KLLL had an availability, and he liked Waylon, found out how much Waylon was making and decided to give him more. and then made Waylon the first disc jockey for KLLL when they opened it up. Now Waylon was making appearances and he was writing jingles and he was becoming a real personality on that station. And so at that time he was doing like meet and greets and different events, and Buddy Holly's dad came and brought Waylon Buddy's latest recording and asked him to play it on the station. So they had already known each other, they had already met, and now Buddy was starting to take off from those recordings he was making in Clovis, New Mexico, not far from Littlefield or Lubbock, with Norman Petty. So Waylon, of course, played that recording for L.O. Holly, which was Buddy's dad, and Buddy was grateful. And so when Buddy came back from London, he was wanting to produce artists, and Sky Corbin, who owned the station, knew Buddy and said, hey, why don't you record Waylon? So that's exactly what happened. That's how they ended up getting connected, was that Buddy decided he was going to make Waylon the first person that he produced. He got him all new clothes, worked with him on his image, worked with him on his songs, and basically tried to break him out as an artist, recording, well, booking a session over at Norman Petty Studios. Now, if you'd like to see more about that, I was lucky enough, and it's a really fun vlog to watch, to get to go to Norman Petty Recording Studios. Look for it on my channel. We not only get to see it's trapped in time, you can see where Buddy recorded all those great songs, where Waylon went and had that first session with Buddy producing him, and the man who gives the tours there was the session backup singer for Norman Petty Studios, David Bingham, and he can tell you all kinds of great stories, including how he ended up there thanks to Roy Orbison. But they ended up making those recordings there. They weren't a hit, but Buddy wanted to go on tour, and he was going to do this winter dance party tour. The Crickets didn't necessarily want to go, and so he asked Waylon to fill in and be the bass player for this winter dance party tour. Vagabond, dreamer, a rhymer and singer of songs, revolutionary in country music, beloved by the world. So Buddy had basically become Waylon's mentor through all this, and then wanted him to do him a favor by playing in the band. Waylon never had even played bass. He didn't know how to play bass. He said, I didn't even, know what I was doing until I realized that it was just 4 strings of 6 strings on a guitar. He goes, then I kind of figured out how to do it. So they ended up going and doing this tour, and this is the, the famous part of the story, which is that February 2nd, they played their last show together at the Surf Ballroom, which we recently vlogged. So if you'd like to see where all of their history there happened, I did a pretty thorough vlog there. Look it up on my channel. They played that show. Buddy had chartered a plane for his band members to give them some comfort getting to the next city and getting a little bit of rest. And the Big Bopper had requested from Waylon that he have his seat. He was sick and he was a bigger guy, and the bus was just a nightmare for all these guys, and Waylon said, I don't mind if Buddy doesn't mind. So when Buddy found out, he was kind of ribbing Waylon about it and said, well, I hope your bus freezes up on you. And Waylon said, well, I hope your plane crashes. And they laughed, and as we know, that night about 1 a.m. they took off, February 3rd, and the plane crashed, a plane that Waylon was supposed to be on. And a lot of people thought that he was on there initially when the crash was announced. Waylon, when he found out what had happened, he called Sky and told him, and told KLLL that he was okay, and told them to let his family know that he was okay. Now let me tell you what happened once Buddy had passed that a lot of people don't know. So the part of the story that you may not know is that General Artists Corporation was the company that was putting on this winter dance party tour, and when Waylon called from Fargo and let everybody know that he was okay, General Artists Corporation said, we really need you to play tonight in Moorhead. If you perform in Moorhead without Buddy, we'll buy you and the band first class tickets to go to the funeral. And so they went and performed that show. The venue didn't want to pay him. Waylon had to be very persistent about it to even get the pay. And then General Artists never bothered reimbursing them for those first class tickets or any tickets whatsoever. Waylon and the band were forced to continue on for the next 2 weeks of the tour in Buddy's absence. Waylon did all the singing, and they were paid half of what the original agreement price was. When the tour was over, Waylon returned to New York City because he had been staying with Buddy at his apartment near Washington Square and Maria Elena, and he just returned, put the guitar and amplifier of Buddy Holly in a locker at Grand Central Terminal and mailed the keys to Maria Elena and told her to go pick up Buddy's stuff, and then he went back to Lubbock with an insane amount of guilt. He believed that he caused that accident, that crash, by saying that, and this started a situation of substance abuse brought on by that guilt, and he had to figure out what his career was going to be after that. So let's go to our next location and talk about how life changed for Waylon there. God bless you, Hoss. I really, really wish I could have met you. I did bring you a guitar pick, though. So we're heading off to now is a town called Coolidge. All right, we have found our way to Coolidge. Founded in 1925. Let me tell you why this is important in Waylon's life. So after Waylon dropped off the guitar and everything inside the locker, he went back to Lubbock, and his family was living in Littlefield, and he went back to work at KLLL, where he had called to let him know he was okay, back at the radio station. But his guilt from the crash, you know, like I told you, him making that comment, he lived with that for so long that it immediately started to affect his work. He was not doing a great job as a DJ anymore. He asked for a raise, they denied him a raise. He went and worked at the competition, and then his wife Maxine's father started getting really ill. So at the early part of 1960-61, Waylon had been coming back and forth from Texas to Arizona to visit Maxine's father, and the family decided to move to Coolidge, and Waylon got his first gig right here. So upon coming to town, Waylon Jennings came here, got himself a gig at the Gallopin Goose. He started performing here and also at drive-in theaters during the intermission time, and during his time performing here at the Gallopin Goose, a man named Earl Perrin saw Waylon performing and offered him a job at his radio station here in Coolidge, KCKY, which incidentally Lee Hazelwood also worked at. So Waylon started working here at the Gallopin Goose, performing, and at the radio station, and then was eventually discovered when he went to play a gig in Phoenix. Well, let's see if by chance they have anything inside of Waylon. So of course everything is closed because the world threat we're going through, but they're doing takeout orders. So when I came in, they said I could actually walk around and look because they have tributes to Waylon all over all the walls. So here you can see one, him getting his start here, or at least his Arizona start. Great photo, 8x10 of Waylon there, and one up here. And up here at top you can see Waylon at KCKY. Now let's go around and look at where the stage is, because they even named the stage after Waylon. Isn't that cool? It says the Waylon Jennings room right above it up here. And then back here, where all the stages and everything, they have some Waylon records. How cool. How cool. What a tribute. Then over here in this corner, they have photo of Waylon and Buddy in the photo booth together. That's a pretty famous photo. And a wood carving of Waylon. The Ramblin' Man, of course. They have a whole outdoor section, but before you get to the outdoor section, they have more tribute to Waylon. You can see they have a signed photo. Here's a framed photo of Waylon, Tommy Alsop, and Buddy Holly on the Winter Dance Party tour. Then some more great framed art of Waylon. So before we head out of here and go off to our next stop, let's kind of imagine what Waylon would have been like performing out here, looking out at this crowd. And this is the original one. Since it was 1935 when it was built and opened, this is the same Gallopin Goose he performed at. And of course the Outlaws. And Waylon took off and played that gig in Phoenix, got discovered by a club that was going to open up, and they ended up building the club around Waylon's strengths, his musical styles. We're gonna go see where that club was now. we're heading off to, I guess it's pretty much like Tempe, Scottsdale border area. All right, my friends, this closed mattress store building is the former location of JD's. It was owned and started by Jimmy D. Musial, and he hired Waylon to be his main act. Originally, this was a double-decker building. The bottom was rock and roll and the top was country music, and they would do nightly performances. This is where Waylon put together his band with Paul Foster, Jerry Gropp, and then eventually added Richie Albright as the drummer. When we met Waylon's friend Bob last time we were here and interviewed him, he told us that Richie originally wasn't part of the group, so they started performing here, and in 1961 got a deal with Trend Records and cut a few songs for an album there. Didn't have much success and kept playing JD's. They were just packing them, according to Bob. Every time Waylon played here, it was just a sold-out show, and he was the talk of the town, talk of Scottsdale, Phoenix. Everybody knew who he was, and eventually A&M Records picked him up and started recording records because Herb Alpert loved Waylon's style, and they cut quite a few records. Didn't have any real hits. He made Just to Satisfy You, which I think is one of his coolest songs, and they covered Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. That was more of like his rock country stylings that we kind of know him for. He was cutting those with A&M. The problem was that A&M was more of a folk label and not known for country, so they weren't doing a great job at really getting anyone to pay attention to Waylon. So one day in 1963, turning into 1964, Waylon was playing here at JD's, and Bobby Bare was traveling through, and on the radio passing through Phoenix, heard Just to Satisfy You, loved the song, and then came here and saw Waylon perform, loved the performance so much that when he left here, he immediately on his way to Vegas called Chet Atkins and told Chet, you gotta sign this kid, this Waylon Jennings guy. And that's what happened. That's how Waylon ended up going to Nashville. Chet Atkins and RCA Victor decided to give Waylon a chance, and Waylon took off to Nashville, hated the experience, and eventually came back here. So upon Waylon leaving A&M and before he went to Chet Atkins, he actually made a recording called Waylon Jennings JD's, and initially sold the first 500 copies right here at his performances. You know, they thought with Chet Atkins producing Waylon's records that they would be a hit, and they just weren't, because, you know, they were trying to turn Waylon into, you know, the old school country guy. They wanted him to be like Hank Williams, and if you listen to Hank Done It This Way, Waylon says in there, you know, he was trying to get rid of that whole rhinestone suit and just being yourself, and when he was making those recordings with Chet Atkins, he couldn't even play on the record himself. They had studio musicians that played all that, and it eventually led to Waylon going off and doing his own thing, which is what brought him all of his success. Now let's go back and hang out with Jaw for a little while. Brought Jaw out here to a park to play around. He's loving having all this open space. Nobody here for him to play with, but he can do his normal investigations, peeing on everything and sniffing everything out. Not bad for me either. I get a great view. All right, my friends, we're going to call it a day. I want to thank Claw E. Redford, Sharon Omarosa, and John McDonald for making contributions to my channel. And thank you all for watching. I love Waylon Jennings. I love to explore all the places associated with his life. You know, we went to Littlefield, where his brother owns a liquor store, and is still there working at it every day. We've been to the Surf Ballroom, we've been to where he recorded in Clovis, we've even been to where the Armadillo was in Austin. So anytime I get a chance to do anything about Waylon, it's a true honor for me, and thank you all for watching, because I hope it always makes you maybe want to learn more about Waylon, go listen to Waylon's music as well. So one interesting thing that I found out was that when he was born, his original name was Wayland, like Wayland, and it was basically meant to be like person of the highway or lover of the highway. And all of a sudden when someone in town went to Waylon's mom and said, "Oh, that's great that you named him after Wayland Presbyterian University," she had never heard of it, and that immediately made her change it to the spelling that it is now, Waylon. Hope you guys enjoyed that little tidbit. Have a great night. We'll see you all next time. Goodbye.